We are on Kuf Vav Amid Beis, 7 line down from the top. Tanya. It's really a new topic. It's going to take us a while to get back to what had been discussed previously. So Kuf Vav Amid Beis, I'm sorry, did I say Amid Aleph? Kuf Vav Amid Beis, 7 lines from the top. Tanya. Rabbi Yossi Aimer. Brothers who had split up a Yerusha. Kuf Vav Amid Beis. You got it?
Yeah.
So brothers who divided up a Yerusha. Now, for purposes of this sugya, although it's not entirely like this in other contexts, and we'll see some specifics about it, but generally, when brothers inherit a estate, they're treated as partners. They're shutfin in the estate, and eventually they split it up. So when they split up their partnership. And the way they did so was they divided it up into different sections, 2 or 3 sections, depending on how many brothers there are. And they said, they put a piece of paper representing the different possible options. And Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are all going to stick their hand into the box and pull out a gyro, and that will determine what they get. So the Gemara says, once one of them has already entered into the gyro, taken his piece, and gotten his section, kanukulam. Everyone else he's kind of his section, everyone else is kind of their section, meaning if there's only 2, the other one automatically gets whatever's left over. If there's 3 of them, the other 2 are now shutfin in what's ever left over, and it's up to them to then be kind of their portions. But up until that point, they're kind of their section. He's kind of his section. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A gyral can become makna. Usually we talk about kesef shtar chazaka to be kind of karka. So the Gemara, my timer. What's the reason why is it kind of? Amar Balaza, ketchilas Eretz Yisrael. Just like the Kinyan, when Eretz Yisrael was nikna, when Yeshua divided up Eretz Yisrael amongst the Shvatim, matchila b'gyral, avkam b'gyral. We say that just like it was a gyral, and that's how everyone was kind of whatever they own in Eretz Yisrael. All the Yidden got their chalakim. So the same thing with the Ach and Shechoku. In fact, if that's the case, if you want to say you're learning it out from Yeshua, you're missing some of the elements. When the Eretz Yisrael was nikna, it wasn't just a gyro, but rather they put kalfi is not really the problem. Kalfi is they put pieces of I think leather with sections of Eretz Yisrael written on it, and what they would do, they would also ask the Urim V'Tumim, and both of these methods would b'shas Eretz Yisrael was divided up, but by a nace they both came out to the same thing. It was sort of a confirmation that what came up in the Geirel, the Urim V'Tumim would confirm that that's what that Shevet was entitled to. So maybe Av Kamakal Urim V'Tumim. Maybe how could you learn from there? There was an extra element there that no one's talking about. Every time you have Ach and Shechoku, you should ask the Urim V'Tumim. Amar Rav Ashi, Bahu Hano, the Kutsaisi Ladodi Gabi Umakli Ladodi. He says, no. We don't need the Urim V'Tumim. We just bring that as the source for the girdle. But over here, since the brothers want to divide up, and they're the ones who agreed to this method, But so therefore, their acquiescence makes it that the Geirul is Makna. But by the Shvatim in Eretz Yisrael, there was no choice given to the Shvatim. They were told this is what you have to do. So therefore, you needed the Ummitum as well in order for it to be a Kinyan. No one had a choice in that, so you need to have an additional confirmation. We're at the two dots on Kufav on the base. Good morning, Dovi. We're at the two dots in the middle of Kufav on the base. Itma, Shnei Achen Shecholk, two brothers who divided up an estate. So like we said before, when brothers divide an estate, prior to the division, they are shutfin, they're joint owners in the estate. Ubala and Achim Dinasayam. And after they divided it up, Reuven and Shimon, Reuven said, you get 50% of the land, you get these 3 fields, and Shimon, you get these 3 fields. And then, all of a sudden, unbeknownst to them, Levi shows up. They thought he was dead, or they didn't even know he existed. They didn't know their father went away and married someone in Medinas Hayam. And he says, I'm also entitled to a third of the Yerusha. Rav Amar, Batla Machlekes. Rav says the original division between Reuven and Shimon is batal. You have to start from scratch. We're on Kuf Vav Amid base. So we just said, if you have 3 brothers who, you have 2 brothers actually, and they divide up a Yerusha between the 2 of them, and then all of a sudden a third one comes that they didn't know about, you have to restart from the beginning. You have to be mevatel, the original chalukah that the 2 made, and redivide it into thirds. Shmuel says, no, that's not what you do. Reuven and Shimon retain what they had been given. Let's say they had each been given 3 fields of equal size. They each keep 2 of their 3 fields, and they each have to give 1/3 and give it to Levi, but they get to keep what they had already divided. Amalei Rav Rav Nachman, Rav said to Rav Nachman, "L'Rav da'ama batla machlekes." According to Rav, that says that the whole thing starts in the beginning. Alma hadardin. We see that you go ahead and you re-adjudicate the original din, even though it had already been decided. You go and you redo it. Alamayata. According to this, Hani Beit Tlasa, the Kaimi. You have 3 partners that are all partners in a business venture, right? They're 3 partners in a piece of property in a sada. Basel Beitreminayu Palug, and 2 of them come together, and they go to Bezdin, and they get an evaluation that agrees that these 3 are 3 fair portions of the sada or of the business. Hachanami de Batla Machlekes. Would you also say on that the machlekes is batal, that you have to start again? Now the Gemara is assuming that this can't be, meaning if 2 people, if you have a, the way I understand it, Rashbam gives a long explanation, but the way I understand it is, you have a business, and 2 of the 3 partners want to divide it up, and they come up with a fair division for all 3 of them, and they say, and the third guy is saying, I have no time for this. I'm not willing to discuss a partnership. He doesn't have a veto power to keep the partnership going. If the majority agrees to divide it up, they can divide it up. And as long as the division is a fair one, there's no grounds for the third one to say, I'm not masking, and there's no machlekes, because if he could do that, he'll always veto any division. So it must be we accept such a division. And if he doesn't like it, too bad. You have a choice. You can go and argue with them. You can come to a different. You could say, listen, I want to bring my tie in, and I want to have it that it should be with a gyral. But if you're not participating, then you lose your rights to blow it up. So the Gemara is saying, why is it any different over here? If 2 of the brothers divided it up, they essentially have a partnership. Why don't we respect what they divided up and then just make them further give halakim to the third brother who they hadn't taken account of when they made the original division? How could you compare them? By the case of the 3 partners, where one of the partners was just not willing to participate in the division, But the other two, they went to Bez and they said, we have to divide it up. We're agreeing we want to divide it up. And this is, could you agree? Could you give your askama? This is a fair division. The Bezin says, yeah, this is a fair division. So it was all made with the idea of doing it into thirds. But in our case, in the case that Agamar is talking about, they originally didn't even know that this third brother existed. So they divided it into twos. So that's not a division that was made that you can say, let's just adjust this division. This division was flawed from the beginning. It didn't take into account this third brother. So now you're going to say, respect what they did and just take off a chelik, take off a section of what each brother got. That's not fair to the third one. Amalei Rapapal Abaya. The Shmuel, the Amma Mekamsin. According to Shmuel, who said that in this case, meaning in the case of the two brothers who divided up, and we say not like Rav, which we were just defending, but like the Chaylik on him, who says that the Einachanam, we do respect the division. We say it's similar to three partners who divided up. Even if two partners divide up, we respect the division, and they just take a portion of what each brother got and give it to the third, the surprise brother, the member, the Kamdina. Does this mean to say that according to Rav, according to Shmuel, that a din survives the fact that we have to now reevaluate? Is it true that once we make a din, once we come to a final division, that is inviolable and that remains even if later on it's determined that it's not accurate? And we're going to see, it's going to get us back to what we have been talking to previously. If someone says, I'm selling you a core which is 30 saw for shloishim slime, you can go back and now the dividing up. He's saying, okay, here's one saw, and the seller gives a saw, and the purchaser gives a seller, and they do this for all 30 slime. And then all of a sudden they get to the 30th saw, and all of a sudden the buyer says, I don't like this whole thing. I'm changing my mind. I don't want to go through with the sale. We say the purchaser can be mavatal the whole purchase, even until he gets to the last saw, because he said, I'm only making the purchase of a base core, which is 30 saw, as a single entity for 30 slime. So until it's over, it's not over. As Yogi Berra said, it ain't over till it's over. So as long as this 30 saw sale is not done, I can be chayzer up till the moment of completion. Now, this is not like what Rav had said, what Shmuel had said. Shmuel had said, Mekamsin, he seems to say that once you have an agreement on something, even though later on it turns out that there's a change in the circumstances and it's not, there's other factors that enter in and change. So he says, so according to him, the Gemara's, it's a shvera, I agree, it's a shvera sushta. It's hard to see the comparison. But the Gemara is saying, according to Shmuel, it says once an agreement has been reached on even something that's partially correct, right? When two brothers have come to an agreement on a Yerusha, even though they're leaving out a third because there's a third brother, we say it's partially correct. We respect their partial division. So we're saying the same thing should be over here when someone buys, and the Gemara will eventually come to the difference between a chalukah, a voluntary chalukah, as opposed to a sale. But at this point, the Gemara is saying, why should it make any difference? Let's say the partial agreement is valid and it stands, and it goes as far as it goes. So even if you did 30 saw for 30 seller, that's valid, and then the last seller, he could be chayzer on. Anyway, in any case, the Gemara just says the end of that memra, which is not really relevant. which we saw earlier, kur b'shloishim saw b'sela. But if on the other hand, he said a lashon of kur b'shloishim, a kur for 30 saw sela, and then he said saw b'sela. Each saw is being sold for a sela. Ani ma'ichalach rishon kan. In that case, each one is sold separately, because according to Benanas, we respect the second statement. So the Gemara says, no, how could you compare the two things? Hasam Abed Rabbanan Milsa de Nichle Lemoicha and Nichle Lelekech. The Gemara says, by a purchase, everyone wants to have the ability to back out. Both parties want to have the ability to back out as late as possible. So there's no reason for the Chachamim to be misaken that each section, as it happens, we should say it's like Mekamsen, that it's already valid and it's too late to back out. Because both the seller will say, listen, what happens if the price of land goes up in the middle? I want to retain the ability to be chayzer if that happens. And similarly, the purchaser says, what if the price goes down? I want to be able to back out and restart, be chayzer from the whole thing. So by a sale, since both parties have a reason to want to keep as many options as late as possible in the game, so we say nothing is coming until the end, according to what they said. Masha came by Achin Shechalku. There's no reason for anyone to retain. Once they agree to a chalukah, it's already done. There's no reason to go back on it. Achin Shechalku. Brothers who, like we said, they were Yerush Yerusha, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven got field A and Shimon got field B. And all of a sudden, a Balchayv of Yaakov, of the father, comes to Reuven and he says, and we had this Gemara back in Bava Kama, I think. And he says, I'm sorry, your father owed me $1,000. This field is worth $1,000. I'm taking field A from you. Rav Amar Batla Machlekes. Rav says, okay, you know what? They each, as the Gemara will explain what the reasoning is, but this is a very straightforward reasoning. Reuven ends up with nothing, and Shimon ends up with field B, which is worth $1,000. That's obviously not fair. So we divide up field B. We're going to say that field B no longer belongs to Shimon, and eventually what they're going to do is they're going to divide up field B between Reuven and Shimon. Shmuel Amaviter. Shmuel says no. Reuven was Mavater, the brother who had taken the field that was then repossessed by a creditor of the father. He's lost his chances. He was Mavater. He made a bad choice, and he got to take it away from him. He's left with nothing.
Field that was used as a lien, or is it just the estate of Yaakov?
How did he choose field A?
Yeah, was it Dafka field A that was miyuchad to pay back to the Balchayv, or is it that he could chose anything? You just have to grab the first one that he wanted. It would make a difference, no? Would you say Viter? Would you say Viter? It was just on the state.
I remember we had this back in Bava Kama.
Yeah,
I seem to remember that it was a case where only field A was meshubit, because otherwise Reuven could tell him, why are you coming to me? Go take a different one. That's always the case, right?
Yerushalayim could say that.
If they are, just like any, as we're going to see, he's a lekeach. He's considered like somebody who purchased a field, that if creditors come and take it away. Now, if there were 10 people who bought, the creditor doesn't get to pick from whoever he wants. He has to always pick from the last one. So it could be that one of these was bought, field A was purchased, came into Yaakov's possession before the loan was made, and the other one was after the loan was made. I think that's what in Bava Kama we said it was talking about. So Shmuel says that Reuven is out of luck. That's the second shita. Rav Asi Amar, Noitel Revia Bakarka v'Revia b'Bais. And this, if you remember, this is a what do you call it? A clumsy lashon, so to speak, by the Gemara, and according to the Rashbam's favored pshat, he says, Rav Asi says that he gets a quarter. That means Reuven is only going to end up, if let's say each field was worth 1,000, and he got his thousand piece of karka taken away from him, he's only going to get 250 back from Shimon, and Shimon's going to hold on to 750. And he's noitel Revia b'karka, Revia b'mais, and it's going to be Shimon is going to have the choice if he wants to pay him back a quarter, is 250 with piece of karka, or a quarter with money. Rav Amabatla Machlaikis, Rav, who says the Machlaikis is bata, which we said made a lot of sense, because he holds their yarshim. They're not lekuchas, so therefore now it turns out we say brera, we go back and look, and we say once there's the Yerushas divided up, we look back and we say we have to divide it up amongst you. We have to reevaluate, we have to redivide it. They're lekuchas. I mean, not only are they lekuchas, it's as if when they divided it up, that was a purchase where each one took his rights and he used his rights that he had in the whole thing to buy from the other brother to be the sole owner of his section. So now it's if he bought it and there was no achrayas, there's no guarantee, there's no warranty, so he's out of luck. Ravasi misafkale yarshin havi kulukuchas havi. He has a suffix, which one? Therefore, the brother who had his karka taken from him only gets a quarter, not a half. The karka Rabbi Bamas. He gets a quarter, and that quarter is divided up. The way we look at it is under the first shot that we say Kiyarshin Havi, then you redivide everything up, and each one ends up with 500. 500 of the land. 500 of the land that's left. Go to the second shot. It's Kalukuchas dummy, so Reuben gets nothing.
She gets 1,000.
So he gets 1,000. According to Rashi's shot, he's not sure who's right. It's a suffix to him who's right, which shita is right. So he says therefore we have to split it. So we divide up what's at issue. Right, the question, the maximum Reuben can get is 500. So we divide that in half. He only gets half of what we're not sure if he gets. So he ends up with 250.
So the middle review of mice.
And then it's the choice of Shimon whether he wants to give him $250 worth of the land, or if he wants to just give him cash. Amar of Papa, Papa says the final decision on all these things, meaning on an original machlekes of Rav and Shmuel, whether we say Batla machlekes Shmuel says Kamsim by the two brothers who made a cholko, and then someone else, a third brother came. On all of them, we say Kamsim that you have to divide up what you got, and that would be the same din over here that we say Batla machlekes. But it's not exactly Batla Machlekes, because if you say Batla Machlekes means that they re-evaluate it. But he's saying similar to what Rav said in our did of where Balchayev came. He says that you do have to, the brother who Reuven, the brother who got his property taken away, he gets 500, but it's not. He only gets a chelik of the karka. That means Shimon gets to give him whichever karka he wants. It's not batla machlekes. You don't start from fresh and divide up to 500. Amema am a batla machlekes. But Amema says no. The din is exactly like the Rav said. That's taka the machlekes. That's the decision we come at with at the end. Okay, we'll stop over here.